Chapter 10. You're late. On Friday, the morning of our play, Rupert's sitting on the school fence with his father's long-handled fishing net leaning next to him. School starts in 15 minutes. I thought you weren't coming. Sorry, Sparky got out of her cage again, and when we opened the kitchen door to leave, she came flying in and knocked over the garbage can, and there were chicken bones and potato peels all over the kitchen floor, and Mom made me clean up while she went to find Sparky. Oh, Rupert hops down and picks up the net. Did she get her? Yeah, but it took a while. She was tucked up on the top shelf of Mom's closet, and it's all scrunchy tied up there, so it was hard to reach her with a noose. And then she got mad and started throwing shoes down at Mom, and one hit her in the head, so I had to go get her ice for it. I started walking with him toward the pond. I remembered the aquarium, though. I hold up the little plastic aquarium we used to keep my goldfish in before they died. Rupert called me on the phone 3 times last night to make sure I didn't forget it. Mom kept asking what was going on. Are you and Annie going to look for crayfish? Nope, Annie doesn't care about that stuff anymore. This is, for a school project. And it is, kind of. Do you really think it will work? Rupert asks. Definitely, it's perfect. We hide the net and aquarium in the tall grass right next to the pond before we go to our classroom. Remember, Rupert whispers as we hang up our jackets and our cubbies, act normal at recess and play with the girls and stuff. And then at 12:25, we both look at our watches. We set them to the exact same perfect time this morning. Meet me by the pond and we'll get the net and catch him. Or her, I say. I'm pretty sure it's a him, he says. Did you check the eardrums? What? Never mind, I'll show you later. I try to concentrate on schoolwork, but it's hard. Everyone's practically bursting with play talk. Are your parents coming? Is somebody going to fix our hair tonight? Ooh, do we get makeup? Do we get to have snacks after the play? What if I forget my part? Even Mrs. Aloy's maracas can't settle us down. Veronica Grace keeps sneaking back to the closet to check on her queen costume. She has a fit when she thinks her tiara is missing, but really it's just over on the shelf drying because Mrs. Aloy glued some extra jewels on it. The whole time I'm working on my math practice pages, I can hear Rupert whispering lines to himself behind me. I try to pay attention to multiplication and division facts, but all I can think about is the big show tonight and the dress rehearsal this afternoon, and how much I hope our plan will work, and how I wish the morning would go by faster, but it doesn't. Reading time. We hear another Frog Prince story and pretend we're newspaper reporters writing articles about the wedding. Jimmy Lawson asks if he can write the story of the princess beating up the frog instead. Mrs. Aloy says no. Math time. If the princess tosses her ball 10 times before she drops it in the well, and then 12 times after the frog gives it back to her, how many times has she tossed the ball altogether? Jimmy Lawson raises his hand. Just 10. Mrs. Aloy frowns. But then after the frog gives it back, Jimmy. Do you really think she'd just go right back to playing with it? Jimmy says. I mean, she thinks that frogs are disgusting. She's not going to just take the ball out of his mouth and start playing with it again. It'll be all covered with frog spit. Ew, says Veronica Grace. Recess. I slide down the slide. I swing on the swings. I play freeze tag. I even help Annie and Isabel try to catch Jimmy Lawson so Isabel can kiss him. He's too fast, though, and I wasn't trying very hard anyway because that would be awful for Jimmy. Finally, my watch says 12:25. It's almost time to head back inside, but just as everyone else starts lining up at the door, I zip over to the edge of the pond where Rupert's waiting with the net and the aquarium all set up with water and rocks and plants. He's out. He's really out, and he's close this time. He's right there. Rupert is so excited his glasses are slipping off his nose, and he's just letting them go. He leans way over the net, and just like that, he scoops up the biggest bullfrog ever. The frog isn't flopping or jumping or anything. He's just looking up at us like he knows this is so important, and he ought to just go along with it. Actually, no, not he, she. Rupert, it's not a boy bullfrog, it's a girl. Look. The eardrum things are the same size as the eyes. It's a girl bullfrog. Well, that's no good, Rupert frowns. Why not? Because wouldn't a girl bullfrog turn into a princess instead of a prince? He has a point, but there's no time to talk about it now. Hey, what you doing? Annie skips up to us and looks down. Wow, he's huge. Are you bringing him inside? This is for the play, isn't it? Oh, it'll be so much better with a real frog. Can I help? No, I say at the same time Rupert says. Yeah? Before we can argue, Mrs. Gardner calls again. 3rd graders, inside, now. She starts walking our way. Here, Annie quick takes off her sweater, wraps the frog in it, and gives it back to Rupert. She looks cold, but she's smiling, and she doesn't look prissy or princessy at all. She looks like plain old Annie. Thanks, I say. We're going to hide her in the garbage can. I mean the wishing well, so she can be in the play instead of that dumb beanbag frog. Let's go talk to Mrs. Gardner so Rupert can get away. Annie nods and picks up the aquarium while I grab the net. Rupert holds the frog in the sweater close to his chest and runs off toward the slides where some other kids are trying to stay outside without being noticed. Hi, Mrs. Gardner, Annie says. We had a question, so we came right to you. What's that, girls? Do we go straight to the auditorium for practice today or back to class first? Head right for the stage, Mrs. Gardner points to the door, and get moving. You're late. Okay, thanks. We do go straight to the auditorium, but we go in the back doors where all the props and scenery and stuff are stored. Rupert, I whisper into the dark. Over here. I find him and set down the aquarium so he can put in the frog. He pushes the aquarium behind a refrigerator box that the kindergartners painted to look like a candy store last spring. He hands Annie the frog sweater and she puts it right back on. Veronica Grace would never do that. Jane Goodall would, though. Maybe Mom was right about Annie. We better go, Rupert says. I look back. We'll visit after school, I promised the frog. You'll be able to see the dress rehearsal from here, and tonight you get your very own part in the show. Chapter 11. Dress rehearsal is perfect until the very end. Rupert is waiting to appear after I throw the stuffed frog against the wall. He looks pretty snazzy in his prince outfit, but I think he's nervous. He keeps bumping into everything and has almost knocked the wishing well over 3 times. Be gone with you, I shout at the stuffed frog. I grab it by one webbed foot and whirl it in circles over my head, getting ready to throw it against the wall for what feels like the 100th time. But before I can let go, the frog goes flying in the wrong direction. It's missing one leg, which is still dangling in my hand, but it flies anyway, out over the audience where Mrs. Sample's first graders came to watch. They all jump up and try to catch it, but then say, ow, because tiny frog bottom beads are hitting them in the face. I hear billions of beads falling on the hard auditorium floor and rolling down the aisles. Everything is so crazy that Rupert forgets to come out as the prince, which is probably okay since a frog is that kind of shape. And that kind of shape isn't likely to turn into anything anyway. Cut! Stop! Mrs. Eloy runs out and takes the frog leg from me. Where's the rest? I point to the audience where a first grader has picked it up and is watching more beads spill out of the bottom. I'll take it home and have my mother sew it back together, I say. I'll have it waiting in the wishing well for tonight. Mrs. Eloy smiles. Your mother sews? I didn't know that. My mother is good at a lot of things. Technically, that isn't a lie. I just don't mention that sewing is not one of them. Besides, it doesn't matter. We already have a new frog. She's waiting backstage, and she's going to be the star of the show. Chapter 12. Mom's late picking me up because Sparky climbed up into one of the hanging plants on the porch and was swinging like Tarzan and wouldn't come down. Things are so busy with homework and dinner that I never even mentioned the problem with the stuffed frog. It's a good thing because Mom couldn't have fixed it anyway. She's even having trouble pinning the sash on my princess dress. It takes so long that I'm almost late for the call. That's a fancy theater name for the time you have to get there if you're in the play. Mrs. Eloy runs right up to me. Do you have the frog? The frog? All set. Rupert steps up and adjusts his crown. I just put the frog in the wishing well. We're ready. Hey, princess. James steps up and tips my chin into the air a little. I give him my best snooty royal look. Perfect. Nice job, I whisper to Rupert. What did you do, put the whole aquarium in? He nods. There's just enough room in there for me to crouch down next to it. I'll hand the frog up to you when it's time. I can't help grinning, and it's a Marty grin, not a princess grin. I keep imagining what everyone's going to do when a real-life frog shows up from the wishing well. Okay, let's get quiet, everyone. James arranges us in a line to head backstage. This is your big night. Remember, whatever happens, the show goes on. If someone trips or forgets a line, you just keep going. Or improvise. Remember, make something up if you have to, but keep going. You've worked so hard to bring this story to life. Let the magic begin. We take our places backstage, and I look around in the almost dark. The scenery crew did a great job painting the big flat panels of wood into a castle. It's set up on one side of the stage, separated from the wishing well by some big cutout trees. Tonight, everything really does look magical, especially the wishing well. I made a quick wish myself. Please let this work. and then the curtain slides open. The lights are so bright I feel like I'm looking into the sun. I almost forget to start waltzing for our opening act, but Annie the Bluebird nudges me with one of her wings. I twirl in 1, 2, 3 step with everyone else. Our first number goes by fast. The forest animals flutter off stage, and there I am, alone, under the lights. Alone, with about 1 trillion people staring at me. Alone and way too hot, and I can't remember what I'm supposed to say up there. I toss my golden ball and think, but the harder I think, the more thumpy my heart gets. I can't remember anything. Then I hear a different kind of thump. One friendly frog jump thump from inside the wishing well, and I remember that I'm confident and brave. And I remember I'm not alone after all. Oh, how I love the way my golden ball sparkles in the sunlight, I say in my clear, strong princess voice. My favorite of all my playthings. I give the ball one more toss and it bounces into the well. Oh, no! I let my mouth drop open and I feel real tears filling up my eyes. I've lost my beautiful golden ball in the deep, dark well. Whatever will I do? I turn away from the well and cry some more. Fear not, fair princess. I turn back to the well. It's Rupert's frog voice I hear, and it's Rupert's hands I see, but they're not holding the stuffed beanbag frog that we practiced with all week. They're holding a real, live from the pond frog, and I swear she's smiling. I'll fetch your ball from the depths of the well, but you must agree to take me into your home. I try to look disgusted. I try to be very princessy and snooty and look like I can't stand the frog. Honest, I do. I only smile a tiny bit as I take the frog from Rupert. I hold her carefully under her forelegs, way up high so the audience can see. I can hear them whispering, "Is that a real frog? It has to be plastic, doesn't it? They'd never allow a real frog." Oh my gosh, I think it just blinked. Oh dear, Marty. I think that last one might have been my mom's voice, but I can't be sure because I've stepped into my room at the castle. The king and queen, my parents, are supposed to enter now and talk with me about the promise I made to the frog. The king enters. Rashina looks royal and powerful in her crown and big purple cape. She looks at the frog and her eyebrows shoot up, but then she just smiles and goes right on with her lines. "Greetings, daughter," she says, and holds her hand to help the queen step into the room. The queen enters. "Greetings, my fair daughter. How is your walk in the—" Veronica Grace spots the frog in my hands and all of a sudden forgets about being the queen. She forgets about her fluffy dress and her glittery shoes and her fancy tiara. She forgets to walk with her nose in the air and her chin held high. She forgets to be graceful and royal, but she remembers how to scream. Ew! She runs off stage and right out the back door to the 3rd grade hallway, tripping over her high heels and flailing her arms like the twirly things on a windmill. She does not look even a tiny bit royal or graceful. I try not to laugh because we're still on stage, but it's hard. And then I look down at the frog. I think she's laughing too. I look at Rashina. She looks at me. Rashina must have been listening during rehearsal because she improvises perfectly, just like James taught us. "Perhaps the queen is not feeling well," she says. I smile. "Perhaps not." Then I remember I'm supposed to hate the frog right now too. But, oh, Father, I have a terrible problem. This creature has come home with me. I promised to take it into the castle after it fetched my golden ball from the well. But alas, I cannot stand to look at it. I push the frog out toward Rashina. She takes it right out of my hands. "Then you must keep your word," she says, and sets the frog down on the chair by the dinner table. I hold my breath. I didn't think about what would happen when we had to put her down. Would she jump right off the stage? Would she get stepped on? Rashina and I both look down at the frog. She looks up at us, then she hops up onto the dinner plate next to a plastic chicken drumstick. The audience laughs. Rashina smiles and says her next line. "You must keep your word, princess. Let the frog share your food and your place of rest." Good things come to those who keep their promises. "Now come. Queen Margaret, let us go." Rashina turns and leaves by herself. I guess she practiced that line so many times she forgot that Queen Margaret ran screaming into the hall a long time ago. A frog is a perfect frog, Prince Frog. She sits at the dinner plate when she's supposed to sit at the dinner plate. She looks up at me with huge froggy eyes when I scream my bratty princess scream. "I can't believe there is a frog in my bedroom!" And when I have to put her onto the pillow on my bed, she sits very quietly and doesn't pee on it or anything. I take a deep breath. This is the part where the princess is the maddest of all. Stupid creature! I do not care what my father says. You are a disgusting, worthless frog. I lift the frog from the pillow and hold it up high. I hear worried whispers from backstage. They all know what happens next. This is the part where I'm supposed to swing the frog over my head and fling it against the wall. The part where the stuffed frog lost its stuffing, and everybody whispering backstage gets quiet. They have no idea that Rupert and I figured out a whole new plan while we were looking for the net in his garage. Is it still improvising if you change things at the last minute but you talked about it ahead of time? Chapter 13. Oh, I forgot to show you the picture. Wait, I say, holding the frog higher and turning to face the audience. Perhaps I have not looked at you closely enough, for now I see how the yellow flecks in your eyes glitter like the sun. They glitter like the precious golden ball you saved for me with your kind froggy heart. In fact, I kneel down, still holding the frog. I pull her in close to my face, so close I can see her nostril holes and the brown flecks in her eyes. I need to just do it before I can think about it anymore. In fact, my beautiful frog, I love you. I pucker up and plant a noisy smooch right on the frog's mouth, sort of. Frogs don't have very big mouths, so I sort of end up kissing her whole face, which isn't slimy at all, just nice and smooth and cool. I don't even mind. But apparently the frog does. After all this time sitting still, she wiggles and wriggles and kicks like crazy until I can't hold her anymore. She takes a giant leap that has to be at least 20 times her body length, probably more, and bounds off the stage into the audience. Sant G, the South African record-setting frog, would be proud. Only one lady screams, probably Veronica Grace's mom. She jumps from her seat and tears out the back door. Everyone else just sits and watches while the frog takes one perfect leap after another all the way up the aisle to the very back row of seats, and then follows the screaming lady right out the door to the playground. I'm still kneeling on stage staring when I hear a voice. It is me, O kind princess. Huh? I turn and there's Rupert in his prince outfit. What are you doing here? Don't you recognize me, princess? He kicks my boot and he kicks my foot and says it again. Don't you recognize your frog prince? Oh yeah, I say. I forgot about the rest of the play. I guess it never occurred to me when he would show up. Well, hi there. Rupert frowns. I guess he doesn't appreciate my improvising, so I go back to the real lines. Oh, handsome prince, I am so glad that you are free from the spell and are no longer a frog. Will you marry me? Of course. I take Rupert's arm and we walk off stage. The audience claps and claps. They won't stop, and I don't want them to. The cast comes back out on stage for the curtain call. My mom and dad are in the front row, clapping like crazy. I look off stage where James and Mrs. Alloy are waiting. They're clapping too. Mrs. Alloy looks a little ruffled, but James gives me the thumbs up sign. Good improvising, he yells over the applause. Way to go! Annie ducks in next to me and grabs my hand. That was awesome! Thanks, I smile at her and squeeze her hand. You helped, you know. One by one, the actors and actresses come back to take a bow. Veronica Grace steps out in her fluffy dress and curtsies, and even she gets extra applause. Maybe the audience thought the queen was supposed to run off looking like a windmill. They clap and cheer, and that makes Veronica Grace so happy she curtsies 3 more times. Then she falls in line next to me, and it's time for our final bow. I reach out to her so we can join hands for the bow like we're supposed to, but she scrunches up her face and yanks her hand away. Ew, frog hands! She scoots over so she's next to Rupert instead and takes his hand for the final bow. I think about hollering over to her that Rupert has frog hands too, but I decide not to. I make one last curtsy as the curtain closes and the applause is louder than ever. I sure hope our frog can hear it from the pond. Chapter 14. The very best part of the play isn't that last scene with the frog and Rashina and Rupert. It isn't the curtain call where we get a standing ovation. It isn't even the cast party where mom and dad aren't paying attention and so I get to have 5 brownies. The very best part is Saturday morning after the show, because just as I'm finishing my French toast with powdery sugar on top, the phone rings. Hi, want to come over and go for a hike in the woods and look for crayfish in the creek and pretend we're Jane Goodall saving the chimpanzees and winning awards for it and stuff? Annie's back. Hey, Mom. I find her filling up Sparky's water dish in the kitchen. Can I go play with Annie? I think so, she says, but first Dad and I want to talk with you about last night. Dad pours coffee for himself and Mom, sits down at the table and points to the chair across from him. Too bad. Sitting down talks take longer. First of all, Mom says, we want you to know how proud we were to see you up there on stage last night. Dad grins. For somebody who didn't want to be a princess, you were a pretty terrific one. Thanks. Can I go to Annie's now? I start to stand, but Mom points me back to my chair. Not yet. We need to talk about one more thing. She looks at Dad. Marty, he says, even though you did a great job in the play, what you did, switching the frog, wasn't very responsible. But the old frog was dumb. That's not the point, Mom says. It had beanbag bits leaking out of its bottom, I say. That's still not the point. And you don't know how to sew, so you couldn't fix it or anything. Marty, Mom puts down her coffee. You're very lucky things went as well as they did. I know you wanted a real frog, but think about it. That frog could have been hurt. He could have fallen or been stepped on, or she, I say. What? The frog. It's not a he, it's a she. I checked the eardrums. Marty, the point is that poor frog could have been hurt just because you wanted the play to be more interesting, Mom says. Think about the choices you make, okay? Okay. I really would have felt terrible if anything had happened to our frog. Mom stands and picked up Sparky's water dish. Can I go to Annie's now? She smiles. That would be an excellent choice. Annie's mom makes pancakes, so I eat breakfast again because it's rude not to eat food that someone makes you. And plus I love pancakes, so I'm pretty sure that's a good choice too. Want more syrup? Annie asks. She knows I always do. Thanks, I take it and pour a big puddle onto my plate. I'm glad you're back, Annie. Back from where? You know, from dancing lessons and floofy ballerina dresses and dumb stuff like that. She puts down her fork. I'm not back from any place. I still like all that stuff. But I thought you wanted to catch crayfish. I do, but I still like dancing and stuff too. Who says I have to choose? Well, I think about that while I finish my pancake and use my finger to get the last of the syrup. I guess nobody. Good, she says. You ready? We're just about to head outside when the doorbell rings. It's Veronica Grace. Hi. She looks down at her shoes. I look too. It's hard not to look at them since they are red, sparkly, high-heeled shoes like Dorothy stole from the Mean Witch in The Wizard of Oz. Nice ruby slippers, Annie says. I, came over to see if you wanted to play dress up. She looks at Annie. No thanks. Right now, Marty and I are looking for crayfish and pretending we're Jane Goodall saving the chimpanzees. Chimpanzees? Veronica Grace wrinkles her nose. It's okay, Annie says. They're friendly. Oh. Veronica Grace looks at her shoes again. You want to come with us? Annie asks her. No way, I think, but I don't say it out loud because Mom would call that a rude choice and not a good one, probably. Veronica Grace doesn't look happy about the idea either. She makes a face like she's been invited to jump into a pit full of poisonous snakes, but then she takes a deep breath and says, Maybe. Can we do dress-up stuff too? I look down at her fancy tippy shoes. She'll never be able to keep up with the chimpanzees. There's no way you can wear those out to the creek, I say. It's all rocky and muddy out there. You need sneakers or hiking boots like these. I balance on one foot and hold up the other one so she can see the new chimpanzee-saving boots Mom got me when school started. Could she borrow your old mud shoes, Marty? You left them here over the summer, Annie says. She digs my used-to-be white sneakers out of the shoe closet and holds them up. They're brownish, grayish, greenish now, and kind of smelly, even from the other side of the room. Veronica Grace wrinkles her nose. Oh, come on, I say. Improvise. Fine, she says, and pulls off her sparkly ruby shoes. She picks up the first sneaker and tries to put it on without really touching it, which takes forever. You know you can't be Princess Bossy Pants if you're going to come with us, I say. Oops. Sorry, I add quietly. Veronica Grace doesn't say anything, but she gives up on not touching the mud shoes, laces them up, and looks down at her brownish, grayish, greenish feet. There, she says, no more tippy shoes. Then she reaches into her bag and pulls out some jeweled tiaras. But these should be okay, right? Sure, Annie takes one and puts it on her head. We'll be the queens of the rainforest. Veronica Grace holds another one out to me. Oh, all right. I put it on. I've never seen Jane Goodall wearing one of these, but even scientists have to improvise sometimes. Just as we're cutting through the vegetable garden that Annie's mom and my mom share, our front door opens and Dad bends down in his bathrobe to pick up the newspaper. A crazy, fast flash of black, brown, gray fur whips past him and sends the paper flying out of his hand. Dad loses his balance and falls into the juniper bush by the steps. The black, brown, gray flash zooms over to the pine tree in the front yard and climbs up. Sparky, Mom calls from the door. Then she sees Dad in the bush. Oh, sorry. Do you think you can help me get her down? Rachel, Dad says, pulling the little green needles out of his pajama bottoms. Do you really think that raccoon still needs to be saved? Take a look. Mom looks up. Sparky's more than halfway up the tree, out on a wide branch. She throws down a pine cone. It bounces off of Mom's forehead. I guess maybe Sparky's all better, she says, and heads back inside with Dad. Annie, Veronica, Grace, and I wave to Sparky and head for the woods. After we save the chimpanzees, Anna says, we'll have a ceremony and we'll all win the Nobel Peace Prize. Ooh, a ceremony! Veronica Grace gives a little hop. That means fancy gowns and dancing. Annie gives me a hopeful smile. Oh, all right, I say, starting down the path to the woods. I guess I can improvise a little too. The end. All right, here is the test number if you want to take an AR test, 143862. I hope you liked the book.